Hello everyone. Let's look at the industrious volunteers problem. We have to find out who's the most hardworking volunteer in the given set of volunteers. We do this by finding out the total number of hours spent by a volunteer volunteering. There are n different types of events and these happen multiple times. HI is the hours spent for the ith type of an event. P is the number of volunteers. We have a two-dimensional array. E of I of j, which represents the number of volunteers and the number of times each event has attended, he or she has attended, where I is the ith volunteer and j is the jth type of an event. And the output should be the volunteer's ID, whoever has worked really hard. Note, if two or more than two of them have spent equal number of hours, then print whosever ID is smaller. And print 0 if no one has put in any time. So let's look at the input and output. So the sample input. 3 is the number of events, 4 the number of volunteers, and this line is the number of hours per event, and E represents the number of hours spent, number of events attended by each volunteer. So let's see how to calculate the output. There are 3 different types of events and there are 4 volunteers and hours per event is 2 to 1. So in the first case, the first volunteer attends the first event and 0 second type of events and 1 third type of event. So what we do is we multiply both of them. 1 into 2 plus 0 into 2 plus 1 into 1 to find the total number of hours he has spent. So we do the same thing for the second, third and the fourth volunteer as well. And now second and the third volunteer spends equal amount of time, and second volunteer ID is smaller than the third volunteer's ID. So we print 2. And the second sample input and output is self-explanatory. So now let's see how to write the code. Let us take an array int h worked, which will store the total number of hours worked by each volunteer, and it will be of size p because p is the number of volunteers. And let's initialize this to 0. Now using 2 for loops, let's calculate the number of hours worked The inner for loop is used to calculate the number of hours worked by each volunteer, whereas the outer for loop is used to take one volunteer at a time. E of I of j will be having the number of different types of events attended by a volunteer, whereas h of j will be having the number of hours spent for a jth type of an event. So as we have calculated the number of hours worked by each volunteer, now let's see who has worked for maximum number of hours. And to store the ID and the hours, let's take 2 variables, int ID and mRs, and let's initialize both of them to 0 to satisfy this constraint, where print ID as 0 if no one has put in any time. So now let's loop through the entire array and check who has spent maximum number of hours. Now the ID becomes I and M hours is updated to the current hours. This way we'll be getting the maximum hours, and now we have to return the ID. But look at this. Here 2 is the second one. So here indexing starts from 0, whereas the numbering starts from 1. We return ID plus 1. But there's another constraint to take care of. If ID is equal to 0. Oh, as we've calculated the total number of hours worked by each volunteer, now let's see how do we find the maximum number of hours. For that, we'll take two variables. One is ID and M hours. The ID stores the ID of the maximum, the most industrious worker, and M hours is the maximum number of hours. Let's initialize M hours to 0 and ID to 0. Okay, we initialize M hours to 0 to take this constraint into account. Print ID is 0 if no one has put in any time. So now let's loop through the hours worked and find out who has worked for maximum number of hours. And if we find any volunteer who's worked for more number of hours than that one stored in the ID, we'll update the values of ID and the M hours. Now we're supposed to return the ID of the volunteer who has put in maximum number of hours. So looking at the input, we can easily say that here the output is 3, which means that it's the third volunteer. But the indexing starts from 0. So we have to return ID plus 1. But we didn't take this into consideration. Print ID as 0 if no one has put in any time. But now if no one has put in any time, M hours will be 0. And ID will also be 0. But when you don't put any condition, then it will return plus 1. So to avoid that, what we do is we compare M hours. If M hours is 0, then return 0. Now let's run the code. Okay, there's a compilation error. So yeah, here I forgot to index it. Run the code. Since both the test cases have passed, we can add on more test cases in C using the custom input. But I'm submitting the code. All the test cases have passed. Thank you for watching.